asking ROI is the last resort of someone who has run out of interesting things to say. That what we're actually trying to have a conversation about is simple. What is the change we seek to make?
What is the change we seek to make? That question stopped me the first time I heard Seth Godin say it, because it's not a marketing question, it's not a CX question, it's a leadership question. And it's the one most change leaders never get asked. I recorded this conversation with Seth before I rebranded the podcast from Delighted Customers to Trusted Guide. And honestly, listening back, I can hear exactly why I made the change. The leaders I work with aren't struggling because they lack a strategy. They're trying to make change happen without the authority to force it. And Seth's framework, empathy, time, systems, and games, speaks directly to that challenge. This is one of my all-time favorite episodes. Love talking to Seth. He is a rock star, and he's generous, and he's provocative, and he's as clear-eyed as anyone I've talked to about what it actually takes to lead change that sticks. I think you're going to find a lot here. I first became a fan of Seth Godin's about 15 years ago by following his blog. Seth is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, and speaker. In addition to launching one of the most popular blogs in the world, I think he's done over 8,000 of them now. He has written 21 best-selling books, including The Dip, Linchpin, Purple Cow, Tribes, and What to Do When It's Your Turn, and It's Always Your Turn. His book, This is Marketing, was an instant bestseller in countries around the world, and his latest books are The Song of Significance and The Practice. By focusing on everything from effective marketing and leadership to the spread of ideas and changing everything, Seth has been able to motivate and inspire countless people around the world, including yours truly. Seth, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Mark. It's a privilege showing up the way you do over and over again. It's a lot of work, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you're most welcome, and I'm excited to have a conversation today to talk about your new book, and which is coming out soon, called This is Strategy, and the intersection between strategy and customer experience. And so I want to start off by asking you, there are countless number of books that have been written over the years on strategy. What white space did you see for writing this book?
I looked and I looked and I looked, and I couldn't find any books about strategy. I found books about tactics. I found books about planning. I found books about how MBAs and generals do their kind of high-powered strategy, the kind of stuff they teach at Harvard Business School. But strategy, as it's used by normal people who are running projects, people who are trying to make a difference, people who are working to build a life, is not talked about. It's not understood. It's overlooked. And the purpose of my book, just as my books about marketing have redefined marketing, I wanted to redefine what we even talk about when we talk about strategy.
Okay, so maybe that's a good place to start. Is you shared some of the definitions of what other people have written about. So when you think about strategy, how would you define it?
Strategy is a philosophy of becoming. It is the hard work of saying no to things we could do so that we can put effort into the things that will grow over time. Strategy combines four things: games, empathy, time, and systems. And all four of them are poorly understood. And your podcast is so important because it's about the empathy of the customer experience. And, if you think about the signs on the interstate highway system in our country, they're all put up by people who already know where they are and who already know where they're going. And that's why it's almost impossible to drive somewhere just based on the signs, because they're not there to help the customer who is lost. They're simply there to remind the people who aren't lost. There's no empathy involved. And as we think about strategy. We have to have the humility to realize other people don't know what we know. They don't want what we want. And they're not trying to get to where we're trying to get to. And that's okay. And if we can't cede them the power and authority to make choices, then we're commanding them. And that doesn't work.
And that doesn't work. And can you think of some examples when it comes to doing that well out in the real world where people have listened and been empathetic and then actually created or delivered, shipped, as you say, product to meet those needs?
Well, let me share an example that happened to me personally that most people didn't notice at the time. In the year 1999, Yahoo was the internet. It was the homepage, the start page of the internet. And on their homepage, there were 183 links, 183 places Yahoo wanted people to go. And when Marissa Mayer helped the tiny team at Google launch their search engine, there were only 2 buttons. Go ahead and take me there, or I feel lucky. And then a big blank where you would tell it what you wanted. And the people at Yahoo, I was there at the time, laughed at this because they had given up, apparently, their agency to the user and said to the user, tell us what you want, as opposed to let us tell you what we will make the most money from. And everybody knows what happened as a result.
A great example. And what happened to Yahoo, I guess. Right?
I could say that it fell apart because I left, but I'm not sure.
So in the new book, you were kind enough to advance me excerpts from the book, even though it hasn't been released yet. And in the book, you talked about how important it was to choose your customers wisely. You said, choose your customers, choose your future. We get caught in the customer loop. Can you explain what you mean by that?
This is such a great segue, Mark. I don't know if you planned it, but it's perfect. Okay.
Sure, I did.
So if we're going to give agency to our customers, if we're going to give up our authority with empathy so they can make choices, please understand you're going to have to live with their choices. So if you pick customers who are super price sensitive, angry, short-term thinkers, who leave at a moment's notice to someone who offers them something for a penny less, that is your life. That is what you signed up for. On the other hand, if you pick customers who demand better work and talk about it, who pay extra for things that are worth extra, who are loyal, that's your future. And most freelancers, most organizations don't have the guts to pick their customers. And my argument is that's pretty much the last choice you get to make. After you pick your customers are going to pick your future.
And so it is a bit paradoxical in our world of customer experience, in that, and this is where I'll land with you alongside you, but it took me a while to get there. In that we're talking about the systems involved with customer experience, listening, designing the experience, delivering consistently, measuring, improving again, bringing that whole cycle around. And so our focus has been on that. What was missing for me until I had Peter Fader from the Wharton School on my show, who wrote the customer-based audit, was the importance of picking these customers first, understanding who your best customers are first. And it's okay to decide who those are going to be and what means value to you as an organization. So you want to say more about that?
Well, so we'll use another example. Patagonia is one of the most valuable brands in the world. There have probably been arguments inside that place. Oh, if we could just make a cheaper shoe, if we could just figure out how to use less reliable fabric, if we just had different policies, we could get way more customers. And the answer is, we don't want those people to be our customers. If they don't get the joke, they shouldn't come. A friend of mine, passed away a long time ago, ran a luxury hotel in the Northwoods of Canada. And on Sundays, they served a lovely buffet, and you could have as many refills as you wanted. And I was sitting there, and Eugene was a very difficult person. And Eugene turned to Marilyn, who ran the office, and said, put Mark on the no list. And I do think the guy's name was Mark. Put Mark on the no list. And after Marilyn left, I said, what's the no list? He said, see that guy over there? He's gone back to the table 4 times to pig out on smoked salmon. He's a jerk. I don't want him here anymore. And so the next time, and for the rest of his life, if Mark calls for a reservation, I'm sorry, the hotel is full. Because we can't serve the people we want to serve if you're here. And firing your customers is an incredibly important thing. If you are not firing customers, you are not serious about picking your future. I'll give you another story. This is early in the days of things like Fidelity and Vanguard and stuff. And some MBAs do some research, and they find that 10% of their customers are accounting for 90% of the customer service calls. And not only that, these customers tend to have low balances. So that means they're not making the bank any money. So they do the math, and then they make a decision. They send a lovely letter to these people, and they say, we valued having you as a customer, but we can't serve you very well. Here are the phone numbers of 3 of our competitors. We're going to encourage you to move your money. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was respectful. They treated people with dignity, but they said, we don't want to be the kind of place that needs to answer the phone on one ring because you're worried about 7 cents in interest. We can't serve you well.
Yeah, for the record, I like smoked salmon, but not that much. So it wasn't me. It wasn't this, Mark. Hey, I want to speak about something that I saw currently. I think this morning I read your blog, and it relates to what you just talked about. I think you wrote, the blog you released today was talking about Microsoft and IBM and how they had kind of become too big, and IBM maybe even too late to do something a whole lot about it. And it relates to this topic, doesn't it?
Well, at some level it does. What I said was that by the time the government gets around to challenging you on antitrust grounds, you have a problem. And the problem is you are spending most of your time trying to corner the market. So in 1985, it was AT&T and IBM. A few years ago, it was Microsoft. Today, it's Google. These are companies that are run by folks who pay attention to how much market share do we have? How do we get everything from everyone? And their instinct is to fight when they get accused of being a monopoly. But the evidence over and over again shows that if they had just said, okay, and broken up themselves, everyone would have come out ahead except for the 7 people in the boardroom who liked being the king of the world. That when AT&T ended up being broken up, it led to this huge explosion of positive value for consumers, and the amount of money that is spent on telecommunications is probably 1,000 times what it was when it was just AT&T. IBM failed because they fought their own IBM PC for a long time because they didn't want to be in the PC business. They wanted to own every computing execution that was done on software that they controlled, on hardware they controlled. They didn't know what to do. If they had broken up and said, our job is to serve customers and to help them go to where they want to go, everything would have been better. And it doesn't happen to just giant companies. It happens to a local restaurant that just keeps expanding because they want to be the only one in town. And then they lose the reason they set up in the first place. It's better to have a smaller piece of an exciting market than to own an entire moribund one.
So I like to pull out gems from guests in the show, and I think there was already had a few, but that one in particular was stay true to yourself. Stay true to what you got in the business to begin with for. And as you start to get greedy and go after things that are beyond what you originally were, things start to fall apart, don't they?
We're having an internet glitch. You're a little frozen. It'll get fixed on the upload. But let's just sit here for a second and see if it catches up. Okay, I think you're back.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So let's switch topics if it's okay. I want to talk about two things in particular. One is the intersection of CX and your new book, This is Strategy. And also, I want to talk about how the leader in particular, the change leader within the organization, and for personal interest reasons, it's going to be the CX leader, but that's interested in making change. What advice would you give? So let's just talk generally more broadly about the intersection between strategy, as you described it earlier, and customer experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so strategy always works best when you have an obsession with the smallest viable audience, the smallest possible audience that would help you get to where you want to go. Everybody else is a distraction. And the way it scales is not because then you go and try to get the word out and get new people. It's because the people you serve tell the others. Ideas spread horizontally over time. This is why customer service is free. There's no amount of money that is too much to spend on customer service because in the moment that a customer is frustrated and offers you their attention and tells you their truth, if you let them down in that moment, they will never speak to anybody ever again about you. But if you overwhelm them in that moment with focus and empathy, they will bring 10 new customers. So, I mean, Tony proved this at Zappos, but you can go down the list of just about any company where it's true. So if you shift me to an AI and then make me press a whole bunch of buttons and then hang up on me, that's why I haven't talked about FedEx in a very long time, right? And so the customer experience is a marketing investment because that is how you get the next customer.
So the whole idea of referrals is critical, and you don't get referrals if you dehumanize the experience.
You only get referrals if it benefits the customer in status or affiliation if they tell somebody else. They will never give you a referral because it helps you. They will give you a referral because it helps them.
So I can't help but think about the book you wrote, Tribes. And can you connect the dots here between what you just said and tribes?
Okay, so the idea of a tribe is tens of thousands of years old. It predates colonialism. It's the idea that human beings evolved to be in groups of 150, cadres, cohorts, villages. And your company is not going to have a tribe, but you might be able to narrate for a tribe that already exists. So back to Patagonia. Patagonia did not invent the dirtbag mountain climber, but they serve them. They give them an icon. They are their avatar. Apple did not invent the tech curious, high style design person. They're already there. Apple connected them. And so a key part of our strategy is to find the people who need us, to help them become who they seek to become. And that tends to involve their status and affiliation with the cohort that they seek to be part of.
Nice. Excellent. Thank you. So now this challenge of the person inside the organization, let's just say it's a fairly decent sized organization, and they're trying to make change,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know in the book, some of the experts talked about different steps you can take to make change effectively. What's some advice that you would give on that person, that change leader trying to make a difference?
Okay, we have to get our terms right, and we have to begin with this. To get to the level you're at, you probably got there by doing a good job. You probably got there by being indoctrinated into knowing what your job is and doing it. And now you are a manager. Managers use power and authority to tell other people what to do. That's not leadership. Leadership is voluntary. Leadership says, I'm going over there. Who wants to come? It seeks enrollment. Leadership is essential if we're doing something we can't prove is going to work. So McDonald's has to have a manager because no one will show up for their shift if they don't. But nobody at the local McDonald's is asked to be a leader because it's by the book. Somebody else figured out the rules for how long it should take to cook a Big Mac. So if you really want to be a leader, begin by saying, this might not work. Move on to realizing there are no proven tactics or roadmap to prove that it will work. That what you are doing as a leader is exploring and learning. That you are realizing that the world we live in is a river, not a lake. Rivers move, they flow. Lakes stay still. And so, because we can't step in the same river twice, because there's a current, we make assertions. If I put my boat in here, I'm probably going to end up over there. Who wants to try that with me? Let's test that and then repeat. So what we need to do as leaders is find other people who want to go with us. That's one reason why I write a book as opposed to making it a blog post. Because if you hand my book to 4 of your coworkers and say, let's talk about Article 137 and 205, we can have an honest conversation about what we see and what we expect might happen. That is leadership. That's not management.
So it takes leadership, not management, to make change happen. In the book, you also talk about this idea of, and let me just read the quote here: tell a story, a true story, one that holds up, and tell it only to your smallest viable audience, the tiny group that is actually listening to you, that cares, and that is among the early adopters.
Yeah, I'm not taking back any of that. I agree with me.
And so storytelling is important. And it's not just telling the story, what happens then with the story, right?
Yeah. I mean, customer experience is 100% storytelling. And, the 2 parts of the Nordstrom story are super important. Part number 1, guy walks into Nordstrom's to the tie counter where the ties cost $150 each, and he's got a snow tire with him. And he's an old guy. He puts the snow tire on the counter and he says, I bought this here. I don't need it anymore. I want a refund. And the clerk in the tie department reaches into the till, gives the guy $400 and says thanks, and he leaves. Now, the great thing about the story is Nordstrom's doesn't sell snow tires. So what actually happened there? And this story is true. I have verified it. What happened there are 2 parts. 1, he did buy the snow tire at that counter when it was a Sears in Anchorage, Alaska. It's not a Sears anymore.
Mm-hmm.
When the clerk dramatically exceeds this man's expectations of how he would be treated, a huge marketing event occurred because a new story was told to a guy who came in ready for a fight, but instead was delighted. And the second part of the thing is Nordstrom's tells that story to everybody. Mostly it's employees. And the story says, don't worry about treating customers well. You won't get in trouble, even if it's absurd. Well, all the rational Excel spreadsheets in the world can't deliver that message better than that story. So storytelling doesn't involve once upon a time. It could involve the fact that the typefaces and fonts in your presentation are amateurish. That's a story right there. You've just told me a lot about what you think is important. So we send signals, we fly flags. And the question you need to ask yourself is, who am I doing this for? And what is the change I seek to make? So another customer experience, tiny story. I named my company Yoyodyne, the one that invented email marketing. I named it after a company in the movie Buckaroo Banzai. And Buckaroo Banzai was a not very good movie, very memorable. I saw it again 2 weeks ago. And if you call Hover, which is the domain registrar where I keep all my domains, and they put you on hold. They play the theme music from Buckaroo Banzai on hold. And I might be the only person on the planet who recognized it. But they sent a message with their music, not just to me, but to anybody who hears it, because it's not Muzak, because it's not something else. It says, we know what music this is. We can play any music we want, but we just put a smile on your face. And that doesn't cost anything, except it does. It takes time and effort to get it right.
So what would you say to and this isn't just CX change, this is change management leaders, it's marketing leaders, that what we hear over and over again is prove the ROI of fill in the blank, marketing, CX, whatever, technology, your tech change. What would you say to them?
I used to get asked this question when I was selling email marketing. And I would say sort of cheekily, what's the ROI of those TV ads you're running? Because I don't think you can measure the clicks. And what's the ROI of this fancy office building everybody's in? Because we could probably just go to work down the street. And in fact, what's the ROI of everything we do except for that one machine you bought where the ROI is obvious? Asking ROI is the last resort of someone who has run out of interesting things to say. That what we're actually trying to have a conversation about is simple. What is the change we seek to make? Not, how do I cost reduce what I'm already doing? There are people who cost reduce what we're already doing. Fine, I'm not going to argue with them. But for the change we seek to make, until you come up with a better idea than the one I've got, we're going to do this.
Love it. Love it. Well, Seth, we've got to land the plane here shortly, but before we do, I hate to land it because I could talk to you all day. But I want to ask you the question that I ask all my guests, which is, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
You know, Mark, I arrogantly proclaim that I have failed more times than most. It's possible I have failed more times than the people who are listening to us right now. And if I traded in any of those failures, including the very big ones, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I am more proud of my failures than my successes. So the only thing I would say to 20-year-old Seth is, it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay.
Keep being generous. Don't look for shortcuts. It's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. Great, great advice. Thank you, Seth. Hey, Seth, if people would like to reach out, get a hold of you, what would be the best way?
So the good news is Seth's.blog has 9,000 free blog posts. And you can share them and print them out and everything else. I don't scale very well, so you will not find me on social media, and I'm not very easy to have a correspondence with, but I don't have the right answer. I just have good questions. So the idea of the book, which you can find at seths.blog/TIS, is to give you a roadmap to have conversations with the people you work with. That's what I'm hoping will happen.
Seth Godin, the book is This is Strategy. Seth, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Mark. What a pleasure. Keep making this ruckus.
What is the change you seek to make? I want to leave you with that. Not as a slogan, as a real question worth sitting with this week. If you're leading change without the title or budget to force it, that question is your North Star. Seth's book, This is Strategy, is worth your time. I'll link it in the show notes. And if this episode resonated, share it with someone who's fighting that same invisible wall. That's exactly who this show is for. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the Trusted Guide podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, you can find more episodes at empoweredcx.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're leading change without formal authority, you're not alone in that work. I'll see you next time.